now.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Merge Roundtable. I'm your host, Mark Hopkins. I have a few other folks with me. There's one. There's Jim Durbin. There's Jendel Preet, and Mark Shutt is back. And we're going to talk about, well, probably a lot of things, but we're going to focus primarily on social media topics. We've kind of been dancing around this idea of like the death of social media or the transition of social media into Web3 or something. We feel like there's a big story here. This is going to be the subject of the next mini doc that Jen's working on. So we're just going to kind of dig into the topic, talk a little bit about the news that may be relevant this week on this topic. So just stick around and take the journey with us. All right, so as I said, we're talking about social media this week, and so it's we've got a full roundtable, and I wanted to give the reason why everybody's here, and because this is going to be kind of like a bunch of differing perspectives that I wanted to mesh and bring around for the same discussion. Of course, Mark Shutt is our host of Web3 Ready. Strong Web 3.0 perspective. Web 3.0 is kind of being named as the successor to a lot of the social media stuff because of the idea of the end of surveillance capitalism and that sort of thing. Jen, of course, this is your mini doc, and Jim, you and I are representing the oldster perspective because we've lived.
Just turned 50, and that's the first words out of your mouth to me. Unreal.
Hey, you know what? We were proud of our Gen X thing a second ago. We were talking about never-ending stories.
We didn't even call it social media when we started.
It was new media.
New media.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really know where do we want to start on this, Jen? Do we want to start like on the history side? Do we want to start like as your thesis statement, what you're looking at?
So I'm gonna give you guys just a general background statement, and I kind of want to hear first what you think of it, and then I'll go into a little bit of the documentation I've been finding. Right? Okay. So basically, what I've found so far is that social media is in an era of decline, both in usage and the favorability among consumers. And the platforms have kind of turned into shells of what they were supposed to be initially. And users have felt less privacy, more advertisements, and really a sinking reason to use the platforms in the first place. So that's where this is heading. I want to hear where everyone's head's at.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, just to kick it off, we've talked about it in the past. Like, massive social media networks have not been profitable ever really consistently. Like some of them have gotten close or had a few profitable quarters, but not really. They're like airlines. They always return to unprofitability. I think maybe advocates for the space or shareholders or board members but might argue that they're in this expansion phase like Amazon and they'll eventually be profitable. But I don't know. You might question that perspective.
After zero interest money, let's see them be profitable.
Right.
Yeah.
What I tell you, he's going to bring up zero interest money. Right.
So I think that's the first thing you said.
Yeah.
Were they all a bubble is the question.
Right. Yeah. It could be a bubble.
Massive social media all a bubble.
Is the public, because it was all pitched to us in the early days, this is the new public square. Should the public square be profitable?
Well, that's the question. Are they a utility? We had that argument 15 years ago.
Sure.
Or whether or not it was a utility or what's the point of it. And our problem is we were such early adopters. You started social, it was fun because it was smart, bright people who worked together. The politics was there, but it wasn't antagonistic. It was more, you just knew this person felt like this, and it was just cool people chatting. You get on Twitter, you fly to someplace else, you say, I'm going to be here for 2 hours, and people would show up. You could just meet people that you knew. And then at a certain point, as everybody got on it, they all started realizing from an engagement standpoint they could yell at each other, and the loudest noise is tragedy of the commons, basic tragedy of the commons. So much so that, I gave up Twitter in 2016, I gave up Facebook in 2017, and I'm laughing at people who use it now. Who's on these? And then you're still on them, but you're on like Graham and stuff like that,
I actually just started using Twitter a couple of years ago for the first time ever. I had a Twitter when I was like probably 13. I made one, never used it. And then when crypto, when I started getting interested into crypto, I use Twitter now, like as my main platform. I actually don't like social media at all. I think it's pointless. I think the goal of social media is not there anymore. It's like to connect people, but as this study shows, it's definitely not doing that. And if I wasn't posting content myself, I would not have any of the applications. That's what I used to do. Is I used to delete all of them, and I'd just be like, I don't need this.
Right.
To bring in an important thing from what you just said, I read this article from the New Yorker, basically saying that, yeah, these platforms now, there's almost no reason to use them specifically because of the sociology behind the platform. They talk about this idea of the social graph, which is the importance that you use something to have a social connection, right? But now, at least in recent years...
Is that how they define social graph?
That's not the direct definition, but
Okay.
that's the layman's terms that are pretty easy.
Is that a new one?
Yeah. I mean, because
What year is that?
This was from maybe 2 weeks ago, I think.
Okay.
This article
Wow.
came out.
so I remember when social graph came out as a word that they were using in social media circles, and we were all like,
Is the impact and influence. So
Yeah.
my Facebook people are overlapping with my Twitter one. Am I using my
Yeah.
LinkedIn audience to push sales?
Yeah.
It was more what was your social presence and how that would impact the things you were doing.
Yeah. This article, I mean, obviously it concurs with that, but it is directly talking about the importance of the whole, social aspect of social media, because it's talking about TikTok and how that whole idea of their algorithm being what is essentially purely distraction coming in, and now
in the U.S., not China,
Yeah.
totally different. They can push you towards what they want, which is ads and influencers.
that's
and
an
driving
interesting
stuff.
thing
It's,
to-
it's based on the advertising piece eventually.
Yeah.
Because once they grow, that's what they're pushing. Same Google. Google used to be amazing to find stuff that you needed. Now it's almost all ads and what you're going to buy. Amazon, you go and you search. Now they're sending you their high profit stuff, not what you're actually looking for. So you have to become an expert at search to get things that we all thought were taken for granted.
Yeah.
Because most people aren't. They believe the first thing they read on Facebook, the headlines on Facebook. They believe the first two lines on Google. But you know why? You guys know what we called it? Social media.
Why?
So remember that before us, it was the series. There's three networks. It was ABC, CBS, and NBC. It was the major media stuff. And then there was a fairness doctrine in place. And then the 80s, radio came on. All of a sudden, radio, and it became a political thing where conservative radio, Rush Limbaugh transformed radio in the 80s. The 90s came along, and you had Fox News and CNN and MSNBC. So, but they were still big, powerful media presences. So when blogging really took off, it was after Blogger 99, 2001, 2002, and it started to explode. All of a sudden, instead of experts, instead of professors or whoever get on CNN, the average person was talking. And they were saying something much different than everything you heard in media, whether it was sports or science, or it was people who actually knew what was going on instead of reporters. So the idea was that social was people talking about the things they knew to each other. So it went from one to many, or three to many to many. And this is the whole idea of social was supposed to help you tell, oh, this is why I love Pepsi. This is why I love these kinds of shorts. So it was about us being the media. And then somewhere along the way, it went to them just tracking all of our data to try to sell us, and then eventually to tell us what to do.
So you're talking about and correct me if I'm wrong, what I believe is the read-only internet, where we're talking about Web 1. That is blogs, essentially directly just the
nah.
the dot
So
com.
I'd say
once
Web
you're
Is that
2.
incorrect?
once you're in blogs, you're in Web 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you could comment and you controlled it.
Okay.
So Web 1 was what? Usenet and Yahoo and...
Well, I mean, so that would even be pre-web. So Web 1 strictly refers to a version of the internet that didn't have back-end programming languages. So like just HTML.
Yeah.
It's mainly just static websites people could get information from.
Yeah.
Right.
And so Web 2 was when like ASP and .NET and PHP were started to introduce as web languages, so you could have dynamically served web pages. So you started having news and blogs and comment systems and stuff like that. So, and that's where they didn't really start calling it Web 2 until TechCrunch came along.
Yeah,
So
right.
Web 2 was coined by Tim O'Reilly, who, if you've ever been to the technical section of the bookstore, it's the books that look like they have those little dot animals on the front. It's like understanding Bitcoin or DNS or something like that, and there's some little animal on the front of it. He was at a conference and said, we're calling this Web 2, the Web 2.0 conference, and it was all about applications written for the web and interactive websites. One of the leading websites that covered that sector was called Read Write Web.
Is that Kirkpatrick? Marshall Kirkpatrick?
Marshall Kirkpatrick, yes.
Back in those days, those guys would email you. I found an email from him from 2009.
Yeah.
I was like, how did I miss this one?
Yeah. No reply to it. Never replied. Yeah.
Dumb.
But back to I have a question. Were there ads running on early MySpace and Facebook? I
Not on
genuinely
MySpace.
don't know.
Not on MySpace. The first ones of those were really hysterical. They eventually tried to run them.
Punch
after,
the Monkey, remember?
Yeah, but that was after Fox bought them, though.
Was it? It might have been, yeah.
Yeah, because they were all
Punch the
bragging
Monkey,
about.
a Flash game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember?
Like I vaguely remember that. I don't know why.
I
Yeah,
do not.
there were some, but I mean, those days there weren't a lot. You could go to Orbits. You could play games on Orbits.
Right.
So it was more about them having tiny little flash things or some kind of application. But you had to start serving it. So blog ads came along, and then people started serving just text links were a big aspect. I used to make $40 a text link on a blog.
Yeah.
A text link, $40.
Blogads.net still around. You can still
Oh, yeah?
you still go, you rent your blog. You can remember that rectangular
Right.
ad site.
And then eventually Google just took over everything, and so it was run much different. But
So I want to talk about this very briefly. You mentioned this with Mark. I forgot when, but our generation, I feel like, are born adopters, right? So all of these social media platforms, we don't really have a frame of reference for what came before it. That's why I find this whole ideology of like advertisements and social interactions being like hand in hand. I don't have a real problem with it in the frame of that's how it's always been. And now that I'm realizing what it's affecting and what the reasons behind it, I just always thought, especially growing up when I made a Facebook when I was like 10 years old, and I was like, oh, it's free, it's fine, everything's cool. And I realized, like, oh, maybe my mom was right. Maybe I shouldn't have been on this because all of my data's on there. They have like my geographical location, they have my age, what my interests are. Now I'm seeing that's kind of it's perverse almost. Like it feels very invasive. Has that something you've always been aware of as like adopters of platforms, as opposed to someone like us?
we could actually be anonymous or pseudo-anonymous pretty easily, and it really took someone who really knew what they were doing, headhunters or some deep. It took a while for people to unmask you. It was called doxing. It was the whole point of calling doxing, which
Yeah.
is someone starts a blog, you have no clue who they are, they don't have an address, there's no phone number, no one's tracking IPs. It just wasn't something that was done, and so doxing a blogger was considered a big thing because
Yeah.
now their safety was
Fake
there.
Steve Jobs. Remember that one?
Yeah. I mean, it was actually a thing we were just learning. So as everybody rushed to get on social, they never thought about privacy. The old MySpace used to have a place. I loved it as a recruiter because it was a place you could put how much money you made. So you'd look somebody up, and then they didn't go back to their MySpace for 5 years, but you knew how much they were making and the companies they were with, which was fantastic because now I knew how much I knew what to call them and do, right? They stopped doing that after a while. But yeah, you guys have grown up in a world without privacy. And the thing is, now you're aware of it. You go back 10 years, they grew up without it but didn't know it. Now you're like, can I have some of that back? So there's a big difference.
I mean, but there was a demarcation point, right? Because social, new media / the social graph, all those little buzzwords that are used by pseudo and actual academics to describe all this stuff, rose out of a group of people like Robert Scoble and Dave Weiner and Mark Cantor and Dana, what's Dana's last name? Dana Boyd, like all these folks that understood social media because they lived it basically the same time as us, right? And they were philosophically aligned with principles of federation, decentralization, and democratization of media. Like it was something that they believed at their core, right? And growing up alongside that was Silicon Valley's world of startups. And they were able to sideload surveillance capitalism into this world because of two factors, in my opinion. One is Google had this mantra of do no evil. So everyone had like a soft spot for Google, right? They're a Silicon Valley local company, and they're like, we're going to be a good company. Yeah, okay, so they have 49% of the ad market, but they're good. They're not evil, right? So, and then second of all, there was a Supreme Court case, and I should have come prepared with the actual name, but it was decided that if you attempted to monetize your blog with any type of ads, you were given the same kind of legal recognition as an independent journalist as someone from the New York Times. And they had tax implications and implications on terms of whether or not protecting your source was something that could be held in contempt of court or something like that. So that line of demarcation was right around, I would say, 2010, 2011, when blogging became commercialized and Facebook became more than just a tool for college students, because we were already okay with ad monetization for this decentralized federated tool. And the big companies like MySpace, Facebook, LinkedIn, and there was the other one that's dead now, I forget the name of.
Zynga.
No. They were all talking about, like, we're going to operate on the same standard, that ActivityPub standard, which ironically is the same standard that is the Fediverse works on now, which is, Mastodon. So, like, everyone was talking that same, like, language, but it was either a lie or it was just, like, the best laid intentions.
They got bought out. I mean, that's the reality of it. The idea is it was us against the machine. It didn't matter what machine it was. So from politics to academics to science to sports, all of a sudden, like, look at something like Barstool Sports. That never would have existed in the past. There's just some dude talking, or Dude Perfect. Any of those things that are out there was just some people doing it, and they get a little fame. That was crazy. It's called internet fame, internet points. It didn't really matter. You'd go to a conference and be like, oh my God, you're this blogger. And you go back home and nobody knows who you are. So it was kind of this weird, it's that first touch of fame, long before they were influencers. There wasn't a lot of money being thrown at it. But man, it's a weird thing, the way it just kind of, I didn't think about it in those three stages.
But it crossed over at some point because Facebook sublimated your impulse to blog.
Yeah, well, Twitter did it first. Twitter killed comments.
But Twitter was like, hey, post over here, have your comments over here, and we'll drive traffic to your blog. Facebook kind of did some of that, but then they also said, well, but you could post your whole thing here if you wanted to. And people like Scoble, who was an independent blogger and in that crowd of people that was pushing for decentralization and ownership and democratization of media, was whole hog into Facebook and converted a lot of early bloggers to just post on Facebook. It's where I am.
When they created the newsfeed, there was a day without a newsfeed before that happened. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, then they began to see and then it was, how do I push more content?
Yeah.
Their way. Once
it was when they bought FriendFeed is what it was.
Yeah.
I hate to be, having this perspective, but the reality is it's just capitalism. I mean, It's inevitable. Like, you're talking about this shift in Facebook. I mean, the whole point of social media is to get attention, to get eyeballs, and
but capitalism on its own would not have done this. It's a specific flavor of capitalism, right? A specific flavor.
An extreme one.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these companies are not really caring about your blog post or caring about how do we take people's blog posts to monetize that,
clicks.
Yeah. And it's a horrible attitude to have, but I just think that's the reality, and you can't neglect that. And I think that these studies are important, but it's important to understand the mentality behind what these companies and these, founders have.
But I mean,
oh, and let me not forget to mention that if you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it, right? and the reality is you're going to use it. But again, as the company, cool, you have a problem with our privacy policy, don't use us. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, all the companies have the same privacy policy.
We went from people being freaked out that you had a blog because they were afraid you're going to write about them, to freaked out if you don't have 6 social sites because that means you're a creep hiding something.
Right.
Clearly, you must have something wrong with you. Like, that switch
But again, I
pretty
think it's
normative.
switching now too. And I think crypto pushes this kind of decentralization and this anonymous attitude where people are fed up with having their privacy invaded. And I think that the whole idea behind blockchain is for more privacy, is for more control of your own information, of your own data.
Do you think people understand enough about that?
No, absolutely not. I think we're in the early days of the internet where, you know, how you were describing some of those early adopters. I think we're in the same phase now, as you have people who are very interested and well versed, and they're the ones talking. There used to not be politics, but it actually evolved a lot in the last 2 years from my experience. Like when I first got into the space, it was great. It was the Wild West. Like you kind of do whatever you want. You could meet anyone. It was like very social and very, I don't know what's the right word to say it, but it was
Early
just a
adopters.
community.
Yeah.
It was a community, like to the truest form of the word. And nowadays, you know, everybody's just trying to kind of bring in this capitalism, but I think it's different. The angle of this capitalism is now, oh wait, our users want privacy. How do we provide that? And there's actually a new social media app that's out now. I have not had personal experience with it, but it's called FriendTech. And it allows you to basically like buy shares of somebody's profile and be able to have private interactions with them.
This is
Yeah.
so. This is something called Empire Avenue.
Okay.
It's an old T-shirt.
Whenever Twitter first came out and Facebook first came out, this company came out, and you could log in with both of those accounts,
That
and
is the new life.
yeah,
Wow.
and you would get, it was just without crypto. There's no
Yeah.
crypto. The points were made up and nothing mattered, but you would get like rewards from other advertisers or whatever. If you
I think that's a great idea because that incentivizes the blogger to, you know, if you want your privacy given up, well, now you have the option to get either money back from it or something, you know, to gain as well,
Right.
not just lose. So I think that's a good.
The content creators, the sharers, the networkers are actually getting paid, which is kind of what Twitter's trying to do to some extent, or X is trying to do.
I love X. I really do. I think that they will eventually be a top social media platform. And I think the biggest thing for creators right now is finding a platform. You know,
Right.
people are going between Twitch, Kick, Rumble, all of these platforms. They're trying to find a new home. And the reason is because they don't want to be censored. They don't want their privacy invaded, and they just want to be able to blog and connect with people.
So what makes it so weird for us? Sorry, Zohel. It's the
No,
whole
go
point is crypto. You don't own your keys. You don't own your crypto, right? That's the same thing. When we talk about building your own platforms or what platform you don't own anything on Twitch,
No.
on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and
YouTube.
TikTok.
now we have the ability to create our own, but that's harder because you don't get that rush of 1 million people.
Right.
But you also don't need 1 million people.
Right.
Like if you had 1,000 people on your newsletter and your Substack one, or just off your own blog or your own server, we used to run all of our own blogs and
Yeah.
email letters. So we controlled everything going through that, except for the ISP. So now, how can you possibly build something? What it is what's a valuable audience? Is it better to have 100 people that you can connect to in meat space, or is it better to have 10 million on TikTok?
I'm going to jump in here really fast because you have a point and you have a point that I want to kind of throw into this. So there's two articles that had similar thought process, right? You talked about this is just capitalism happening, right? When data collection comes in and the sale of that data for advertisers, it's a self-driving machine, right? David Amerlin said that. But there's a contrary type article from the Neiman Lab where it's saying tech giants and these giant media companies will either have to meet the needs of the user or recognize that all of this view count, all of these eyeballs and interactions and engagement is the only thing they're looking for. So they'll only accept content from people that are getting those eyeballs. So capitalism, yes.
Double-edged sword over here.
I wholeheartedly agree that it is a self-driving machine. If you can make money from it, advertisers are going to, throw money at you. Whether or not you're profitable, I guess that doesn't really matter all that much. But admitting that all you care about is engagement and view count over people that will actually consume your content, will actually utilize it, like the early days of blogs, it feels like we're at a crossroads right now with social media, where these tech giants can't really keep up with what the consumers want anymore.
I think we're at a crossroads with our entire digital identities, with our entire digital lives. I think that the way we interact online in all aspects is changing right now. I think that people do want to have more control, and people are fed up with the way things are. And I think there's a big movement now, and I think blockchain and crypto does support this movement, but there are a ton of people who are fed up. I mean, they don't want to have TikTok controlling all of their information. And I think that if platforms don't adapt, then they're going to get left behind. And that's why I believe in X so much, because I do think they're adapting. I mean, week by week, they have new announcements. I know Mark doesn't love X, but I just think from all the platforms I've used, like I never used Twitter. I thought it was stupid. And then now it's the only platform I actually want to use, you know?
So I want to guide that and dig a little deeper. Like, can you elaborate? Why do you like X so much, Mark?
Well, first and foremost, the entire Web3 world is on X, but I think there's a intentional effort to make content creators want to be on this platform. They just released their monetization program, which I haven't looked into detail into all the other monetization programs, but from my understanding, this is one of the biggest programs. Like, they are giving about, I believe, like 99 or 98% of all ad revenue to their content creators, or not ad revenue, whatever the monetization revenue is for the content creators. And you can feel when you're on this platform, like you almost feel it, like they're inviting you back. They're like, okay, we messed up, we want you guys back. And there's been efforts with the monetization.
But 99% of the people that are gonna so you have to have a blue check mark to qualify for that revenue, and 99% of the people who would opt in via that blue check mark are going to return 100% of that revenue back in for the cost of the blue check mark.
Yes.
But the cost of the blue check mark is like $8 a month.
And they're not going to make anywhere close to $8 a month. Guaranteed. But this is the whole reason why when I started SiliconANGLE, we decided we were never going to run a banner ad. And to this day, I haven't been there for almost 6 years, 7 years, something. They still don't run banner ads because they found a better revenue model. We discovered, so most blog advertising is, if it's not CPC, which is like Twitter, like Google Click ads or whatever, it's CPA or CPM, which is cost per milli. That means for every 1,000 views, you get X number of dollars. The best CPMs that you could get in 2009 when we founded SiliconANGLE were about $40 per 1,000. That's the best. That's still like, and that was like with a premier ad network, pulling strings to get on an ad network, and then, okay, so we can get. So my partners at SiliconANGLE's monthly rent, because he shared a fence with Mark Zuckerberg, was $13,000 a month in Palo Alto. We realized we were never going to achieve escape velocity for even the rent for my place in Dallas and his place in Silicon Valley off of any amount of viewership unless we were passing TechCrunch in the number of views, which was at the time the gold standard for the biggest publication in tech.
And that was probably still millions, right?
Oh yeah. I think there were somewhere like 4 or 5 million page views a month or something like that at the time.
Wow. Which is just not doable. I mean, if you're not
if you launch. So by the way, actually, it's 2008. So we launched like right after the great tech recession that was coming, and like we're never going to take up that much territory. Plus, advertisers are harder to get. So we just gave up on banner ads immediately. Like it was a 5-minute discussion after we had founded the blog. So we've got to come up with a better way, and the better way was underwriting, right? Which is a time-tested form of monetization for small media organizations like PBS, like National Public Radio. Like it's underwriting. You say, this is to the stakeholders, this is the content that we want to make. If it's valuable to you, pay for it. If you're an industry member and you think this content needs to exist, pay for it. If you're an individual contributor, pay for it.
So why would they pay for it though if a lot of that information is already free online?
Because if it isn't there, it needs to be there. That's the decision making that the audience has to make, or that the stakeholders have to make. There wasn't a ton of quality enterprise technology publications out there. There still isn't. There's still like maybe less than half a dozen. like 5 or 6 reputable enterprise tech public, and most of those are consumed through payola type schemes where you can't trust what's being written.
When was the last time you read PC World?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, there you go.
That's one of them.
Yeah, PC World, Info World, like all these are this is like, and you're
The
talking
OG.
and you're talking multi-billion, almost $1 trillion industry of coverage. Like NVIDIA is part of this sector that gets covered, and there's like 5 or 6 publications. Half of them aren't reliable because they're captured by the organizations that, and so like, yeah, underwriting is the way to make this happen. And so with a tenth of the audience, we were always running at about a tenth of the audience of TechCrunch, which was, again, the industry leader for tech publications and blogs. We were able to make their run rate every year, which at the peak of my time there was close to 10 million. I think it was like 8 or 9 million or something like that, which TechCrunch with their CPM banner ads got close to every year. They also got close to 10 million with much larger audience. So all that to say is that when you're monetizing through surveillance capitalism, you are always going to undervalue the work. It's always going to be sub-minimum wage. You can't do it unless it's a completely automated AI-generated content stream, in which case it's just garbage noise anyway.
Yeah, so I wanted to guide this, so we kind of covered like the content part of it and content monetization, but what about other functions of social media besides that, such as, so you're talking about the social graph, Jen, because we can talk more about content. I want to spend the last like 20 talking about Discovery Engine if you want to, but what about the social element of that? Does it matter? Is it worth talking about, or is it,
I think it's worth talking about. Well, I think the social aspect of it that can be discussed is, are we still using social media to be social?
Exactly. Yeah, I think Mark and I had a convo, and he was telling me about Telegram. Sorry, Mark Hopkins. Yeah. And so, like, you know, there are platforms like that emerging. I know, Jen, you're on a couple of them, right?
I'm attempting to find social media platforms that are more aimed towards the social aspect of things. I think, as someone who's used social media for quite literally my whole life, I saw a shift but wasn't paying attention to it, where social interactions started mattering less and less and less. And it's at the point right now where I have almost no social interactions on social media outside of maybe my closest 5 or 6 friends. I'll like their Instagram posts and maybe
I
make
hope you
a
have
comment.
some social interactions in real life.
I do.
If you're over 60, you'd be on Facebook and Instagram all the time.
That's the thing. When
TikTok
I was
now.
I was younger, Mark, we've had this discussion before, where I was essentially like a Facebook like troll somehow. Not troll in the traditional sense, but I was on that platform every second of every day, posting, interacting with people. At one point I had like 2,000 friends on Facebook that if any of their feed like posts or showed up, I would know exactly who they are. I would know exactly what we've talked about. And then that all just stopped. Mm-hmm. And now my Facebook feed, those people still post, those people still use Facebook, but my feed is all advertisements.
And they're aware of it. They put the Band-Aid of the close friends thing. I don't know about Facebook, but like Instagram, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny, they're putting these Band-Aids on platforms to address that, so they're aware of it.
It's after the fact, and I think the demographic of Facebook, as Gen Zers will say all the time, it's older and it's aging out of what social media needs to be. Mm-hmm. Older people want to be on Facebook more than anyone in our generation.
Yeah, but I think they're trying to shift towards our generation with this whole meta rebrand. I think that's the whole idea behind it is, oh crap, our users are getting old in about 10, 20 years.
I will say I was exposed recently, some younger friends of mine showed me their Facebook feed, and like there's like a renaissance of like goblin mode Gen Z posting that happens on Facebook now. That's like
Goblin mode.
What does that mean?
Oh, wow! I found a younger word than the whole crowd. It's just like shit posting, like extreme shit posting with no regard to reputation damage that might occur from what you say.
Which is weird from Facebook because of their community guidelines that you get striked every single time you say anything slightly off color.
But the way you use it apparently is you have like 3 backup accounts and you just cycle through them as they get banned.
But that's against the terms of service.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So, like, I'm thinking about this while we're talking about it, and it's like the first question that comes to mind is, what is the solution? And let's say there was one. The problem with any solution for this given situation is that human nature will make us find another problem. This whole social media thing probably doesn't work perfectly in any way, shape, or form, because it taps into something about human nature that is just very in tune with how humans have always been. Over time, this thing started as a platform where people could connect. That was the entire objective. And then you have this guy who wants to do this, you have that guy who wants to do this, and then that's externally of the company. And then internally in the company, you have all these other motives trying to, shape the direction of the social media. And I just think that, when I think about like, what is the solution? Well, regardless of any solution, there will probably still be other problems that we don't know right now, but because of the way social media functions and the way it's structured in its current form, I do think it exposes a part of human nature that will come out in any version of social media.
I mean, and you may have some notes on what I'm about to say based on previous conversations, but like I think what we're seeing in like the last 10, 20 years of social media evolution is the clash between what hundreds of years of sociology has discovered, which is Dunbar's number, basically. You can't have more than a certain number of valid
150.
relationships.
Your brain can't understand more than 150 relationships. After that, it starts to be blanked out.
Right. And then the problem being is you can't have a massive unibrand social network that has, 1 in 7 people on the entire planet.
40%, roughly 40% of the planet use Facebook.
So one in, yeah. So we have four in 10, people that you can't have something that big and make money with it and adhere to Dunbar's number.
Right.
That's exactly the point I was trying to make. Is you can't have like all these things, the way that we think of social media and connect with people, make money and create content, like they all don't mix together in a perfect
Well, so that's where we I've brought up the Richard Morey boogie board quote before. It's you can't fight the wave.
Yeah.
Why do we keep trying to design systems that fight the wave that we know humans can't function in?
Right.
I'm going to bring this up to kind of bridge the gap between what Sohail wanted to talk about and what we're talking about right now with Dunbar's number. I think the model, the TikTok model, I'll say, the discovery engine, is what tech companies thought would be the solution to that, where it's not based off of the 6 degrees of whatever.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's not based off of that. It's purely based off of what you are physically engaging with and what others are engaging with. TikTok is an endless loop. You can scroll on it for probably a decade and a half and not run out of videos. And the whole basis of it is what your eyes are watching and what other eyes are watching and what people decide to double tap that screen, right? Mm-hmm. Other platforms are starting to adopt that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's the solution. People don't want friends. People don't want interactions. They want to be distracted.
They want an endless dopamine.
But they don't.
That is
But they
flat
don't.
out not true.
But that's why it doesn't work on any other platform than TikTok. It doesn't work on Facebook. But have you noticed that Facebook now works on the discovery engine? Mm-hmm. It doesn't work. It doesn't work on Twitter. Sorry. It doesn't work.
Yeah, Instagram is like their algorithm is garbage compared to you sit there and you're scrolling like, why, like for 5 minutes I've not seen a single video that I'm interested in. Why am I in this app?
On Twitter?
On Instagram.
The only thing I think it kind of works for a little bit, but it still needs more, like it needs to learn what you watch, is YouTube. YouTube puts you in algorithms, whether or not it's a good algorithm, that kind of drag you into different perspectives using kind of a quasi discovery engine idea.
Yeah.
I think it could work, but what happens to your subscriber base then? Like, if you're subscribing to, let's say, 100 channels, are you seeing them and what their other subscribers
You
are
lose
watching?
everything quickly.
Or are you just gonna cycle through a bunch of random bullshit? You don't know. That engine
that's
might
been
not
long
work.
gone, and I was thinking about that. That was pre-TikTok. That's been gone. You know, the subscribers, they try to introduce a bell because they're trying to fight their own algorithm. It's the same
Right.
thing. It's the same thing with close friends. They're fighting their own algorithm. Yeah.
Like you said, it's a band-aid. So what's next? What do you find, you specifically, Mark, because you know more about Web3 than me, what do you find to be a solution from all of these Web 2.0 style of social media platforms into this Web 3 platform? Or what do you think could potentially come next in the natural evolution of social media?
Well, I wish I could say decentralization, but the reality is we know that doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't... Oh, Mark's giving me a look over here.
I want to see where this is going.
All right. The reason I think decentralization is a lot more theoretical than practical is because you need someone to lead. When you have 100 people working towards one common goal, there's going to be a point in time where probably, let's just say 10% of those 100 are going to divert from the main goal. And they're going to see other, failures or successes and want to go towards that direction to either avoid those failures or to get to those successes. And I think in the form of decentralization, you're not able to have the same efficiency, the same productivity and outcomes that you would in a centralized manner. I think that the problem with decentralization at the moment is that there's nobody leading the pack. And if there are, well, then that's centralization right there.
That's very capitalist propaganda coded.
So, yeah.
So that's also that's only because developers don't get glory, right?
Yeah.
So Kevin Marks, remember Kevin Marks from early days of blogging? Kevin Marks has been working on the Fediverse
With an X or...
no, without the X. Kevin Marks.
Dang.
Has been working on...
K Marks, yeah.
Yeah, K Marks has been working on ActivityPub since what is his name? Aaron Schwartz started working on it, right? So back before he commits suicide. We're talking like close to 20 years now.
Lord.
And these are the same people, the same crowd, the Dave Weiner crowd that I was talking about. This is there are leaders that have been pushing this forward, and the guy that founded the Mastodon, which became the most popular implementation of ActivityPub, is a leader. His instance has 40,000 people, and it sometimes becomes synonymous with ActivityPub, but it's really leading the way, painting a road for how to have a decentralized social network. Whether or not ActivityPub ends up being that is yet to be seen.
But can I ask you this? What happens when he stops? What happens when he stops working on it?
I mean,
It all goes away.
That's my point.
Absolutely not. No,
That's my point, though.
There's thousands of developers working on it. Just like what happens when Satoshi disappears with Bitcoin? Does it all stop? No.
I mean, it's tried to go in many directions. The community has been split how many times? To this day,
it went
still
from
split.
100 million market cap to 2 trillion.
I don't disagree.
So then why do you like Bitcoin, Mark?
Why do I like Bitcoin?
No,
Or what does he
shut-
like?
No. But here's the thing: no one can actually touch Bitcoin. Like, no matter what, at the end of the day, it is truly the perfect example of decentralization. Because if him and I run the entire network, it doesn't matter what we think. Like, it matters what the network thinks. And I don't know how to verbalize that in a way that makes sense to someone.
So
who's
then
not
take
familiar.
a look at Nostra, Nostr. It
Okay.
is probably the only example of a truly Byzantine fault-tolerant social network with a leaderless, Bitcoin-like ecosystem of development. I mean, granted, you looked at the website.
It's terrible.
It's like 2009
That's my
Bitcoin.
so
point.
bad.
I'm not saying it can't work. We know it can. Bitcoin works.
Okay.
My point is, it's not going to be efficient. The productivity levels are not going to be as high.
What does productivity mean when it's in terms of communications?
I guess not productivity. I meant like the deliverables. They're not like the user experience is going to be shit compared. I can go on Facebook. I know Mark Zuckerberg and his team's working on it, and it's a great experience. Versus, I would way rather have decentralization, but none of my friends are going to be on there. My individual experience of using it is going to be horrible. So what do I actually get out of it other than?
I'll push back on that. Here's another decentralized
I
communications
love when
platform.
you push back.
Email, right? Email is a decentralized communications platform. Is the user experience awful?
No, because I go through a centralized entity to use it.
You go through a centralized portal, but email is not centralized.
Protocol.
Or, Outlook is a centralized protocol or centralized portal for it. Gmail is a centralized portal for it. So Eudora email client is a non-centralized portal for it. It also
What is
looks.
that?
It's
I don't even know what
it's
that
an email
is.
client. Thunderbird is a non-centralized portal for it.
So basically, I can go on my computer
Download an email client and
Run it.
and just run a client, and that has to do with coding or no? Like, do I need to know how to?
No, you don't have to code. The coder that wrote the software needs to code.
Back to stacks, right?
Yeah.
And then
I'm gonna jump
Those
in
stacks
here,
haven't
Mark.
developed, but I think Mark's saying that they will be.
Right.
So that's
I hope
the
they
point's moot.
You know, I hope they do.
It's just a different ecosystem. It's a
It
different
is.
type of
It
capitalism.
is,
I'm
for
not
sure.
saying that capitalism is like surveillance capitalism is a particularly insidious form of capitalism that ruins communications platforms.
I agree. I agree.
But that doesn't mean that like you can't have a better way under capitalism. We don't have to like burn down the whole system just to have a better communications platform. We can make incremental improvement. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be an
like,
ideal
no.
outcome, Sohail. I'm just saying like we can make some steps there before we like
Yeah.
start.
These are the
riding in
type
street.
of questions and problems that you could talk about all day because it's very hard to find a perfect solution if that perfect solution even exists.
Well, here's the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I made some notes about this. So I think we touched on it a second ago. We talked about like Telegrams feels like it's a way to supplant what social networks are doing for us. Like during the pandemic, I had one particular friend of mine. He very loudly quit Facebook. Said, "I'm no longer going to use
They
these."
always quit Facebook that way.
Yeah.
No one's ever silently quit
Yeah,
Facebook. You're a liar. I don't believe you.
I killed 5,000 contacts and deleted every piece of content.
Well, but
so
now
that I
you're
could
announcing
mess
it on
with
a
the,
podcast, though.
Wow, that's the least
you didn't
quiet form of hypocrisy.
You ruined 10 years of it.
But what he did is he decided he was going to create, like, because Facebook groups was getting big during that
Yeah.
period, so he created all these little topical groups and invited all of his friends onto Telegram to talk about like anime and music and movies and all this other stuff, politics, and he just invited the people that were interested in that, and there was these interesting group chats, right?
And I think you'll see a lot more of this.
Yeah, so I'm seeing it with Discord too. People are dropping out of social media but creating Discords for their friend groups.
This is where I was going to jump in between you two. So I had the same thought process that you did, where it's like, oh, if one guy is leading this mega platform, that makes the most sense because we need a central decision maker. But Jim made a point earlier where do you really need 1 million people viewing your content, or is 1,000 people that are dedicated to your content better? I think from my research currently, I don't know if this is the conclusion I'll land on, but it seems like social media is heading in a way where it's going to be more spread out. And I think the decentralization will work if we have smaller circles, like what Mastodon's been doing with, like you said, 40,000 users. They don't need 4 billion users to work. It needs these small, entertained groups that are all going to be in this one location talking about certain topics. And then the idea of a leader doesn't matter. You have DAOs that kind of come in and take over.
So I agree with you, but I think there needs to be two things. And one is a mandatory, the other one is not mandatory, but probably this is what people want. If you have 100 people in your community, you need to keep them entertained. whether that's talking to each other, posting videos for each other, or pictures, whatever it might be, they need to be entertained, or else they're going to leave from that group chat and go to either another group chat or another platform. So I absolutely think that is mandatory, that you need to keep those people engaged within the platform or whatever it is. But the second thing is if you have 100 people who are paying you $100 a month, you're living. Like, you're making good money. You don't need more people. So I would take those 100 people that are dedicated, that are committed, that are helping me enhance my life, and hopefully I'm doing the same, providing that same value to them, versus having 1 million people behind me. So I definitely see a scenario where if the structure, the reward structure and the entertainment structure is right, you don't need these massive social media platforms. You just need a way to connect with other people.
You never did. I mean, that was the truth.
Yeah, that was the thing.
It was always, do you want tiny world? There's small world. Was the super rich one that was there for a while. So there's been lots of other networks that are out there.
Cathedral in the Bazaar.
You reach a point, though, I think that social is going to crash on its own because of AI. Because AI can do better content. It can do it faster. It's going to flood every possible channel that we ever have. And the only way to stop that is basically go into small groups of people that you know. I think we're forced into decentralization because the algorithms and the content making is just too big. Profiles, fake, fraud, Mid-Journey. What could you possibly do that's better than when an AI could create 5,000 versions of a video? There's just nothing you can touch with that. And then it picks and chooses which one, and now it's all AI content at the top.
Yeah.
So and there's no way to stop that. There's no way the algorithms are going to be able to beat that. It's already
happening.
It's full on happening right now, and it's going to accelerate and get much worse.
Jen, make note of this. I want to explore maybe in a video of this and content and monetization of art under capitalism and how that intersects with social media.
Well, they just get slapped down again. You cannot have an AI author and have a copyright.
Wow.
They got slapped down
that's
again.
That's actually an incorrect.
The one that just came out.
That's actually
3
incorrect.
days ago.
You cannot. The AI cannot hold the copyright.
Yes, that's what I meant. The AI can't.
The
hold
human
it.
can though.
Human can't
But if
use
the AI created it,
Then the AI cannot hold it. So basically, it was a ruling about the rights of an AI, not the rights of humans using AI.
Right.
If
There
you're a
has to-
human,
only a human can copyright. It has to be human work.
so if you're a human and you use
Got
AI to make content,
human work can be copyrighted, but if you are a human that uses AI to make
That's
your
still
work,
human work. I mean, depending
Yes.
on
That's
how
when they
you-
begin to argue about it.
so but in that case, the AI can't own the copyright. The human who used the AI owns the copyright.
right. So let's say I go on Twitter right now. I use ChatGPT to make my tweet. I want to copyright that tweet, or I use a business idea. I get a business idea from ChatGPT. Can I copyright that, or no, because I used AI?
Yes, you can.
I can.
Yes, you can.
Well, obviously, my AI isn't going to the courthouse filing for a copyright claim. Like,
Right.
well,
So
they're still trying to figure that out. How much is human versus it's the
these are all like
everything
district
else.
courts anyway, so it's not
Yeah.
like a Supreme Court ruling or
Yeah.
anything. But like, these recent court cases were saying that the AI cannot hold the copyright.
Yeah.
The humans who use AI can.
I don't think they said human. They didn't rule on that at all.
It was everybody wrote the headline wrong. If you dig into the actual ruling,
Yeah, AI generated art. That's the one that just came out 4 days ago, right?
everybody. So the reason why it got written wrong, and this harkens back to every other
because they use ChatGPT.
It was just without any human input.
It's because
Right.
of the writer's strike going on. They were trying to make it about the studios should think twice about using AI for stuff. So because they can't hold a copyright, and that was got to be the dominant narrative, but that's not actually what the ruling said.
Plus, we know what happens when you use too much AI.
When content degrades to mediocre
Instantly.
quality. Yeah.
I mean, the whole point of creation of content is that you learn, you know what you learn. You're getting better as a human being.
well, you're a creator. You're almost an artist in that sense. Is that you have to use your unique human abilities to come up with these ideas, and AI definitely dilutes that. And when the time comes that we only have AI content, there will definitely be, a divergence point where everybody's like, we're done with this. Like, this is pointless. Why would we only want to see AI content? Because there will be no originality from it.
Right.
So,
How cool
Will
can
it,
it be
though?
if it's...
I think that's an interesting topic to explore.
I think
I think we would need a little more prep time to kind of
Yeah.
explore that in
need some more
depth.
due diligence.
I think
Imagine a world where your
Imagine a
bases
world.
are covered and you have food and a roof, and then you can just make art because it's fun.
Never did a utopia start with imagine a world.
Oh my God, Karl Marx, are you in there? You okay?
This was a good show.
Well, so the I'm trying to make sure I'm cognizant. Oh yeah, we got to wrap this up.
Yeah, we got 10.
We got
But
10.
if Mark
10.
has to go,
No,
he can go.
I'll just stay. Hopefully I don't get
You're
fired.
going to get fired.
Hopefully not.
After that video from last time.
Yeah.
Which we're not posting.
Which we're not posting
for right now.
The most recent Black Mirror thing where they're talking about like the AI generated quantum
Yeah.
level of content. I mean, like at that level of AI, which the technology doesn't exist for yet and won't exist for quite some time until another breakthrough occurs. Like I think what we're talking about is somewhere the line is somewhere between like the Library of Babel and just like what is AI even really?
Yeah.
Right, because like you start looking at how like people that call themselves AI artists, because of lack of a better word, how they're using it now is not just simply wholesale generation of content. Like they're using generative fills, they're augmenting certain parts of original artwork. I've been having a lot of fun taking like little snippets of like a poorly, like an old thumbnail or something like that, and just like using AI to fill in the outsides of it or generate entirely new things. And when you run like 15 or 16 different generative fills, at what point it's not like the AI made all the decisions,
right?
It's AI assisted, right?
And this is the question with AI is like, is it going to replace us or is it going to replace the people who don't know how to use it? Because
I think I've heard that so many times. I'm pretty sure it's now propaganda.
that what? That it's
That's
gonna
one of
replace
those.
us?
Its sentence is too good. You won't be replaced by AI. You're replaced by somebody using AI. I've heard it so many times. Now I'm thinking that's definitely coming from a think tank. Somebody's pushing that.
That's not a bad
Wait,
point.
Mark, how do you feel? Sorry, Hopkins, how do you feel about that?
About what that
What
sentence?
Jen just said, yeah. Is that a psyop? Is
Wait.
that
It's all psyop.
Oh,
It's all
you mean-
psyops. Everything in
yeah.
this
I don't know.
country is.
I thought it was an original thought when I said it.
That's what I'm saying. I know when you said
So
Maybe it's because we said it 7 years ago and
Yeah.
nothing's changed.
right.
But
Well,
that was
but-
just,
yeah, that's the thing, right? Because when we were talking about it when it was Watson, it was definitely true because Watson wasn't anything close to even Hollywood AI. Now that we're
Right.
getting closer to something that looks like Hollywood AI, now it feels like, oh, maybe we should pump the brakes a little bit. But I'm still all gas, no brakes. I enjoy it.
I don't think you realize how many. That's
sorry,
my
you
fear.
can't say all gas, no brakes.
All gas, no. Oh, good Lord.
Canceled.
I missed that, but yeah, I mean, all of these things they're super interesting to explore. I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's a perfect solution. I think by having discussions like this that are, conversational, you can come to a good conclusion, but it's not going to be perfect for every human being.
Jen, what's the plan? What are we in for the next month or two?
Enlighten us.
So I'll enlighten you guys on what Sohail and I are going to do. So, also Sohail did not agree to this necessarily. I kind of roped him into it. To really get a full scope of what is going to come next,
You're going to interview people.
I am going to do
On
that.
social.
But the only way to really figure out if this is going to be the next generation of social media or not is to dive deep into these platforms that are advertising themselves as Web3. So for the next month and a half, 2 months, we'll see how long it goes. We'll be using a couple of different Web3 platforms. We're still under the talks of which ones specifically, but hell, for the last 3 weeks, I've been using Odyssey more than YouTube. I've been using Pop Social more than I've been using Twitter. And I want to get a full, in-depth look at what my theory is of the future of social media and see whether or not that pans out. So you'll be seeing periodic updates of us using those platforms, and we're gonna dive deep and we're gonna explore. I think it's gonna be interesting. Mark, I'm very interested in giving you updates
Okay.
to see how you feel about them.
So he can just crush your dreams and tell you everything that's wrong with it.
Yeah,
He's not a boomer.
talking to Mark is
That
one of my
us.
favorite
We are the
things.
dream crushers. Yes,
Yeah.
Gen
Wait,
X.
why don't we
We're
get
the-
Mark and Jim in on one?
Yeah,
just one. We
just
pick our
one?
favorite.
Would you guys be down? How about all of us? Would you all be down for that?
Wait,
do what?
What are we
We'll
doing?
pick one platform that we all use, so we can all have
Like
the
a
same,
Web3 platform? Oh, dude, I don't use Web3 platforms. I just don't.
Can we technical difficulties
Yeah,
that?
right, go
What the
ahead.
hell?
dude, they are the worst platforms to use. I'm sorry. Like, I love Web3, and
He
I'm
likes a good UI.
I'm the biggest advocate for this stuff, but it's just brutal. Like, I don't want to have a shitty experience. I'm barely on my phone. I'm barely on social media. The 10 minutes I have on it, I'm not trying to explore how to connect my wallet on the right end of the bottom corner of the
Yeah.
footer.
I'm
with
gonna
him.
propose something to you though, Mark. How does the user experience get better if
If
there's no users?
Hey, by other users, and that ain't gonna be me.
Well, it
Wow.
sounds like the Web3 guy is out of the
You might
experiment.
get fired for that one, not the one we did last week. But yeah. No, I mean, like, I enjoy it being an early adopter. I'm in. Pick one.
I'm in.
We should pick one that we.
Yeah, we'll discuss.
Everything gets better with friends, right?
I
Everything's
call
better with
Lens
friends.
Protocol. I'm saying it now.
Lens protocol.
Yeah, that's the one I'll use.
Okay.
All right, that one's out of the question for sure. Then
All right. Cool. All right. So, have any other final thoughts for this week? Any?
This was fun.
Yeah.
this was a great discussion.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Let's do this again, guys.
All right. We'll do it again next week. Join us then. Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.